and gloves, but outside of that, it's cool.
It's intense.
That's really
It was
intense.
kind of surreal, you know, like, whoa,
I was like,
we just
what?
stepped into a movie.
It is. We went to the store the other day and I put on some gloves and I was doing some other things and checking for hand sanitizer and I was like, wow, this is probably 100 movies that have been made.
Right, yeah.
We're in, but you know, I think that this is actually going to get a lot weirder.
Yeah. Sure.
I think we're live.
I'm waiting for the ships.
Yeah.
Are we live, Kate?
We're live, fam. Thank you so much, everyone. I really appreciate it. We are live, and let me go ahead and make a proper introduction so that everyone who is joining knows what we're up to. Wow, yes, 36 people are already here. Amazing. I really appreciate it. For those of you just joining, thank you for being here. My name is Kay Moon, and I'm a twin flame channel and Western astrologer. And this is the first of what I hope will be more than two, but definitely two on the books, twin flames in union panels that I am hosting. These twin flames in union panels are designed specifically for you to be able to download the frequencies of a 3D world union transmitted by these three twin flame couples in union at this time. Today, I am joined by Dov and Nicole of Twin Flame Revolution, Lee and Sheri of Relationship Reinvented, and Sandra and Allen of Twin Flame Divine Fire Radio. And it is my pleasure and honor to be able to share both of their stories and the ways that they can help you today completely on the house. This is something I wanted to be able to do as a service to the community. It had been in my heart for a long time. Many of you come into astrological readings with me and you seek the type of support that only these people can offer. And I personally know my lane and I work hard to stay in it. I, as an astrologer, am a glorified newspaper reader. I am a town crier. I am a hall monitor. I can tell you what needs to get done, where the issues are, why they are there. But in order to be able to fully assimilate and integrate the lessons and do the work, you need someone who can get in the trenches with you. And that's who these twins in union are. Thank you so much for joining. If you would be so kind as to go ahead and hit that like button. And if you're new to the channel, if you would be willing to subscribe, that would be amazing. Hitting that like button and hitting that subscribe button does help the video get circulated and people will be able to find it better after this. So let me go ahead and introduce you to the couples that we're joined by today. All right, and let me pull to the front my notes here. There we go. All right. So first up, let me go ahead and make sure you guys can see them. Okay. You should be able to see Dov and Nicole here. First up, we've got Dov and Nicole, and they have shared with me that just like so many of you, they have struggled with anger, addiction, loss of identity, sexual assault, abuse, and things so extreme as seeing a woman set on fire in the street. Their experiences have stretched them so that they have such a deep sense of empathy, compassion, and understanding for everyone who walks through the portal for support for them, with them. They understand what it's like to have been in poverty, to wonder where the next meal might come from or how to keep the lights on or turn them back on, and also know what it's like to experience the kind of grief that is so soul crushing, it makes you wonder how you'll ever get up off the floor again. Near-death experiences, also par for the course with these two, only to return with a purpose so strong that it kept breath in their lungs. These days, life is a lot different for them. They've traveled the world. They've experienced multiple different cultures and religions and ways of life that they couldn't have imagined otherwise. giving them a deep sense of purpose and understanding of what it means to be human and create life consciously and intentionally with one another. Dov and Nicole are here to help you understand how things exist in relation to what you want to create the life that you were meant to live. Dov and Nicole, welcome, and thank you so much for being here today.
So
Thank you
much for having us.
Right on. Okay. And for some reason, I'm checking my phone for the video feed to see how we're doing on video. This is not rotating between the speaker and the rest of the folks that I want them to. So give me 1 second. Oh, there it is. It's rotating. All right. I just need to shut my mouth. All right. Next up, we've got Allen and Sandra of Twin Flame Divine Fire Radio. Allen and Sandra's journey, get this, guys, spans 3.5 decades. So for those of you who feel like you've been, quote, waiting too long for union and wondering, quote, how long is too long to wait? Talk to me when you've hit 3 decades, guys, 3.5 decades. If you had told Sandra and Allen when they met in the 80s that the chain of events that they've experienced were going to happen, they would have told you, you're cray cray. No, that's not how this is going to go. After meeting each other and marrying earlier in life and having a set of twins, then they separated, guys, in the 90s to go their own ways and live completely separate lives. How many of you guys have been through this? You show up in my readings and you ask me this all the time. Hey, my twin and I have separated. Is this it? Is it the end? After 3.5 decades, Allen and Sandra will tell you it's not. In 2011, what most have coined a midlife crisis, came a reconnection and a recognition for them that was a complete surprise to both of them. They know that this was an awakening and remembrance of who and what they are and why they are here. Together, they're now experiencing being spiritual beings, having that human adventure, tasked with standing in their loving union by their higher selves, their future selves, source, creator. They are here to live and have human experiences, just like us. They're here to heal and walk a path that can only be described as a divine fire awakening. For the past 3 years, Sandra and Allen have been blessed to give voice to modalities of awakening through their popular Twin Flame Divine Fire radio show, which is part of the Truth Frequency Radio family. Through cozy conversations on their show, you too can get both inspired and enlightened to your own divine fire and your own divine path as a twin, either in union or on a path toward it. They also offer healing and recalibration attunements with soul seeking assistance and moving beyond their own limitations and helping them make the energetic leap into their own higher calling paths. For more information, you can find them, of course, at Twin Flame Divine Fire. Sandra and Allen, welcome. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Oh, thank
What an
you. It's
honor.
an honor to be here with you and these two great couples here. Thank you.
Fabulous. Thank you. All right. And lastly, but certainly not leastly, we have Lee and Sheri of Relationship Reinvented. Lee and Sheri have shared with me that for them, consciousness is the being that has always lived within us and it connects us with everything. It's both the stillness and the silence between every thought and every word. Consciousness, which is beyond thought, is not about taking on the beliefs of someone else, but it's instead about shedding the beliefs that were never truly ours to begin with. Lee and Sheri Patterson, Twin Flames, work by connecting through a deep soul connection. They are here to show us all how connection to ourselves in ways we never thought possible to see allows us to experience all of our senses and truly be divine incarnate on planet Earth. Answering the call to consciousness for all of us isn't about taking on the beliefs of another spiritual guru, group, or individual. Their clarion call for all of us is to answer that call to consciousness by bringing ourselves to an awareness that we have choices. And this is part of the being that is being a human being. Soul intelligence, honoring thoughts, beliefs, and knowing that removes limitations and suffering and creates the space to receive love without conditions. Lee and Sheri, I thank you with so much gratitude for being here today.
Thank you for
Thank you.
having us.
Yes.
Yeah.
Excited.
Yes.
Hi, guys.
Mm.
Hi, beautiful.
Those were aliens.
Fantastic. So, the way I've planned out and mapped our time together today, because we do have a finite amount of time, even though time is infinite and we know it truly doesn't exist, we are bound by the 3D laws of being on the planet Earth at the moment. So, we're going to take 10 minutes each. I'd love to hear from each of you a little bit more about your story. If you'd be willing to tell us a little bit about how you first met, the moments of awakening for each of you, how it may have been different, and how you finally found yourselves in this place that is so often coveted called 3D World Union, that would be fantastic. And if you could kind of keep time on your side as well, I'll definitely interrupt you, but about 10 minutes each is ideal. Let's start in the order that we began introductions in. Dov and Nicole, you're up.
Thank you.
Thank
Hi,
you so
everybody.
much. Hello, hello.
So happy to see all of you, and also so happy to be part of this panel. Thank you so much for what you've created. I can feel all the love from everyone that's here. It's really, really moving and beautiful. I can remember the first time that I saw Nicole's picture, and it was digital. She found me on MySpace. We've been together a while. It's probably almost 15 years ago that we connected online, and it was like a feeling I had never had before. It was like being hit in the soul. You know, it was like I couldn't tell what I was feeling, because it was a combination of so many things, from remembrance to pain to love to excitement, and being maybe 20 years old at the time or about that, I had never felt anything like that. And it took me hours just to accept the request because it felt so huge. And it was really such a profound moment.
I love that it was MySpace. We didn't have Tinder or Facebook. Not that I've ever really been on Tinder, but maybe for a little bit when we separated, I tried that and I was like, oh my God, no. I saw her picture. I remember she was wearing a white dress, and I had just got out of a year treatment program. I was an inpatient in this place, this therapeutic community for drug addiction. And I remember I moved to New Hampshire from New York, and I saw her picture, and like I had a creeper moment that I normally don't have, but like I saw her picture and I all of a sudden like saw like layer after layer of like these timelines, which I didn't know they were timelines, of laying with her and huddling with her and being with her. And it got really emotional and knew that I needed to know her. And, you know, I was always a woke little being, and I incarnated a family that was very much asleep. And so when I met Dov, and we started to interact online for 2 years before we ever even spoke on the phone, you know, I had met my match, like, you know, in every which way, art and ideas and perception. And, you know, she was very spiritual. She was very spiritual, and I was very religious. And it was an interesting kind of weird experience where I was like, either she's like Christ-like, or her mom and her are Satan worshipers, tarot readings, and it was interesting because what I experienced with her for the first time was what unconditional love felt, looked like, smelt like. I had relapsed right away, and after 2 years was able to connect with her. And it went so fast. We pulled a lesbian thing where like we met, we were like, let's take it slow. We started dating. I moved in after a week, and, you know, and the rest is history. No, we moved in together. And, you know, my wife told me if I ever picked up certain drugs like crack or heroin again, that she didn't want to be with me. And, you know, my inner saboteur said, oh, really? And I did it immediately to kind of blow it up. And she stayed. and she loved me. And before you know it, I went into a rehab, and it went from romance, sexual, hot, polarity, fire, to breakdown after breakdown after breakdown, and having to look at like every part of myself. And it's still scary for me to witness myself through her and receive that kind of love. There are parts of me that are still unwilling to receive this unconditional love, and I search myself for those places throughout. And so it was, whoo, I'm gonna let you take over now.
Oh, girl.
Like, we missed some timeline moments there. No, I'm kidding. Yeah, it is incredible. You know, I love that Nicole actually just said that, because people think that when you get to a particular point in your journey, that the evolutionary process of the integration between the soul that's able to love that humanness, and then, or able to love at that unconditional level, and then the humanness that has those other experiences just dissipates. And I see that it's so transformed in us, and I also get to still continuously experience the humanness, and that's beautiful. So we ended up backing up a little. We ended up landing within 20 miles of each other after I had finished college, and she moved back from New Hampshire in a small town upstate New York. We both landed ourselves in the Catskills. And after we met in the 3D, you know, that's when everything just kind of happened, because we couldn't pull ourselves away from each other. And we then began this years of incredible up and down and process and work and integration. And throughout that, we always came back to this place that I remember being able to describe as like God would wash the slate clean. You know, I couldn't understand what that meant. I didn't understand why we could go through all sorts of personal or couple integrations and challenges, and then come back to this place where love, right? What I was really saying was love, because for me, source and God, and that's that love energy, and it just washed it back to where we could stand up stronger, clearer, better. And it took us to a point of physical separation to even understand or hear about the twin flame concept. You know, we were not throughout the journey sticking together because there was a concept behind us. We didn't know anything about it. We just knew like there was a magnetic force that was holding us together, and also making us, you know, cuckoo at times because we needed to do our work, that was so beyond anything that we ever knew. And we had so many remembrances. And actually interesting, like, tidbit is the day that we decided to commit to each other, I cried for 3 hours, and I couldn't stop myself. And it was all of that remembrance of all of the lifetimes and all of the things we were going to live in this one, and all that soul remembrance of why we were here and doing this together. So we come to a separation, and there was all sorts of things. There was infidelity, and there was lying, and there was difficulty, and there was, you know, all aspects that came up to be present with our reality. And in the separation is when we actually started to understand about the twin flame concept. And both of us resisted it until we both accepted it. When we accepted it, we never questioned it again, because it was just, okay, that's for us to have information. And the gifts and the challenge throughout the separation was incredible. When we came back together, we had a distinct understanding that it was so much more than a relationship.
Yes.
And that there was so much that our beings, since we were little girls, wanted to serve this planet, and the gifts just started to open bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger.
Totally. And so just to go quickly, we knew that we had a purpose together, and we locked into that. And Dov was actually a lawyer at the time, and I had my own business. And you know, I got this message from God. It was just like, hey, you're moving out of New York. Dov's going to quit her job. You guys are going to start mission together. You're going to start a business. You're going to coach. You're leaving in 3 months. And I was like, okay, now I have to tell her that. She comes home from her job, and I'm like, baby, we move in. I made a vision board. We're leaving October. We're going to get there October 1. And she was like, oh, really? Pray tell, like, where's the money come from? We live in like a box in New York City, in like a beautiful place, and actually in Brooklyn. And we got to Florida October 1, and we starved a little bit through it. We maxed out some credit cards, and then we had so much faith, and we got to this place now where I'm humbled by how we're able to serve this planet. And all the stuff that I've ever gone through, my life was rough. Like, I've suffered a lot in this life. I have took on a lot, went like through hell, past hell, in so many different ways, still feeling the brunt of that hell, having to face it every day at moments. And to know that I get to take what I went through and what I did to be able to show up in front of you and serve and to receive the love from all of you and do this together. And I'm so moved that we're all here, Lee and Sheri, and what was the name we came up with?
Sandra and Allen.
Sandra-
The double
no.
name, right? That's
Andra.
right. Well,
No,
Andra.
yeah, I was to be able to be here with you. My heart is like pounding, and I'm so just honored to be in this place. And it's been one heck of a ride with this girl. I mean, moments of love and then hatred, because I hated myself so much that I was like, I hate you. And she would just be like, you hate yourself. And I was like, you are so right. And being able to come back and look at those places together. And as we are healing ourselves and coming, into this wholeness, being able to just share that with people, and people get it. And that's how we connect. And so, yeah.
Yeah, it's been it is an amazing journey. And we're really happy to be here. And all those things that we went through, they gave us bagfuls of tools. And that's how we started. We started by understanding ourselves, wanting to show up as who we are in an aligned space, and start sharing those tools. And those tools turned out to be helpful for the twin flame community and beyond. And all the things from having to start the business to our past careers to all have allowed us to really serve a very wide audience, from going to the source of what is going on behind the veil for them to create real success and alignment in their lives. And it is a deep, deep honor, and really excited to be here.
Thanks, you guys. I super appreciate it. It was awesome to hear your story. And I know that's got to resonate with so many. In fact, I was watching the chat as you guys were sharing, and I just saw all of the resonance pop through. Lots of virtual nods, and yeah, been there, felt that. So definitely appreciate you guys sharing that. And if you're just joining, thank you again for being here. If you would go ahead and hit that like button, that would be amazing, because that definitely helps the video get circulated if it's liked while it's live. Next up, we are going to hear how Sandra and Allen made this happen. Now, some of you, when I asked for questions in advance of the panel, there were some of you who had similarly been through, like Sandra and Allen, years of separation or years of silence. And so now we're going to hear from, and some of you have been doing this for, 2 decades. These two have been at it for 3. So Sandra and Allen, who I lovingly named today Andra, if you would be so kind as to share for about 10 minutes your story, that would be fantastic.
Well, I was doing really well until I heard that 3 decades that we've been doing.
I sent her that information.
Oh my God, we are coming to your town soon. We gotta talk. He's like,
We'll be here waiting.
So just so you know, there was no such thing as even internet when Allen and I
yeah. We did have indoor plumbing and floors, so we had that going for us. And electricity.
So
Wheel. Carry on.
don't start making us joke already.
Stop it. This is our turn. Shush, shush.
We did meet. Oddly enough, we put some timelines together. Allen and I have always been 3 hours apart, no matter where we were.
Always.
And oddly enough, the universe sent us all the way to Frankfurt, Germany to meet.
Even though she was living in Missouri and I was living in Illinois, we had to go all the way across the pond to meet in, what was it, 1985?
1985.
Yeah.
And I just remember this amazingly tall, good looking, nothing but legs, stepping off of this bus on this Camp King. And a girlfriend was walking with me, and guys, I'm 9 months pregnant. Okay. And I looked at her and I went, oh my God, I'm going to marry him. And she went, you have lost your mind. You are married. You're about to give birth. What do you mean?
Look at you.
And needless to say, a few years later, we actually did end up getting married. And we had this beautiful moment on Valentine's Day.
Yeah.
Where we came together in the NCO club, and it was like the entire room just emptied out. There was nothing, but
it did. And I have to interject here just briefly, because I have to say, when I was growing up and at that point in my life, I had a very certain type of woman that I was attracted to. She wasn't it. Total honesty and disclosure, she wasn't it. But when I looked into her eyes, everything went away. I mean, it was the most bizarre feeling. And I know I drank a lot, but I wasn't blacking out. I remember it distinctly. It was, everything went there. It was loud, and I'd never experienced that before. And I thought, what is that? And anyway, we enjoyed the rest of our evening together, and
we went our separate ways for probably about, I don't know, Mandy was almost a year old.
Yeah, about a year, maybe.
So I just got this feeling. One day I moved back to the States. My husband and I were going through a divorce. I had this baby, and I'm standing in this trailer in the living room, and I go, what is that? It just felt really bizarre. And I go to the front door, and I see this the duffel bag on his shoulder. Mm-hmm. And I went, Alan? And he went, there you are.
I've been looking for you. The night before, I had gone out and had a little bit of fun. I decided, you know what, I'm just going to go see her. So at about 2:00 in the morning, I went back to my parents' house where I was staying. I threw everything I could into the duffel bag and started walking. And the next day I ended up there. So
yeah,
please.
And so there were we had these amazing moments. We had this connection, and Alan would go, what are you, a witch? Because we had that telepathy.
Yeah.
And he would go out and do things and come back, and I go, how did you know that? How could you know that? He goes, what, you got spies everywhere? I'm like, yeah, I do, but I'm not using them.
Well, after a couple of times of that, I'm starting to really have trust issues with my friends, because I'm thinking somebody's got a big yapper going on, you know?
But this is where we're going to get really serious and tell you the telepathy is when there was no internet. Telepathy and the heart expansion between the two of us was unbelievable. And we had some really good times, but we had some horrible times.
Oh my God, you talk about
drug
polar
addictions,
opposite feelings and things that we would go through. I mean, one day we would just absolutely love each other, and the next day it was like we were trying to kill each other, you know, but we didn't know what it was. We had no clue what it was. We thought we were just BS crazy, you know.
So did our family and friends.
So did everybody that lived along our street, you know. Yeah, they just thought we were crazy.
And lo and behold, in the middle of all of this, then we get pregnant. Okay, now this is the real kicker, because if you are meant to have children, you're going to in this dynamic.
Because we were on 4 forms of birth control at the same time.
And
to make sure
got pregnant with twins.
And it happened.
So a lot of people talk about they really would like to have they'd like to have children with their twins. It is quite the interesting dynamic. So
we don't have a lot of time, so we probably kind of cut to it a little bit.
Okay.
We just kind of struggled our way through that as best we could, because, you know, kind of like what Dov and Nicole were talking about. I was heavily into addiction at that point. I mean, heavy. I think the only thing that saved me was that I was young and my body could take anything I threw at it, because I was in pretty good shape outside of that. But it just wasn't meant to be. You know, I came home one night after work or after a party or something, and she said, I got a bus ticket for you. You got to go. And we went out and celebrated that night that I was going to go. Actually celebrated. And when we left, it wasn't goodbye. It was like, see you later. I remember that. We were just like, see you later. I thought, what an odd thing to say. You know, we're breaking up and see you later. So.
But we had a great time, and we went our separate ways. There was a lot that had to be learned, and I had children to raise, and a lot of them. And so we went our separate ways. And at the 11-year mark, Alan's father passed away. Now, guys, we didn't have contact with each other. When we disconnected, we disconnected.
And that was it. I figured, okay, you want me gone, I'm gone. And the next 11 years, I call my lost decade, because I couldn't really tell you what happened. I really don't, because that's when I really went heavy into addiction. And I think I got married and divorced once in there somewhere. And, it was just crazy. But we came back together at that 11-year mark when my father passed. And that was crazy in and of itself, because I swear to you, it was like no time had passed at all. We picked right up, except on the good part, the good side of it, the, amicable side. And we didn't miss a beat, there was no readjustment period. There was nothing. It was just like, boom, we're like that again. And then that day was over and we went on.
Another 11 years.
Another 11 years.
And in the meantime, I was married to a soulmate and raising the children and raising a grandchild at that point. And I just woke up one morning and I had a dream about Alan's mom. And one of the twins called me and said, Mom, I had a dream about Grandma Shirley. And I'm like, so did I. Let me see if I can track your dad down. Lo and behold, like normal, he's 3 hours away. He was in Cheyenne, Wyoming, and I was in Colorado Springs.
Doing a radio thing.
Yeah. And so we kind of rekindled a little bit. I won't go into a lot of detail about that, but we found out after all those years of me telling him, man, you got a radio voice, that he's in radio and I was in radio. And we're like, what the heck? Not knowing that either one is in radio.
No clue.
And when we reconnected, it was like we were waiting just to have closure from the past. And all of a sudden, these amazing things started happening. I'm getting goosebumps as I'm telling you, because it was so amazing, that reconnection. And we had no clue that we met Lee and Sheri during this time. And they were tremendous support for us, guys.
Yeah.
And we had all of these amazing things that were going on. But at the same time, on the balanced end of this, we had these horrific things going on. And it balanced out. And all of a sudden, out of the blue, we pipe up and say, oh, goodness, like Dov and Nicole. I woke up one morning and went, oh, honey, we're going on an adventure. And he's like, what?
Oh, boy.
We're putting everything in storage and we're going out in the wilderness for 52 days. And he was like, what? Have you lost your mind? I said, I'm completely going with spirit here. We have to compress a 35-year time frame into 5 years, and we're not necessarily going to like this, but we got to do it and we got to trust. And that's what we did. And during that time that we were in the wilderness, coming out of it, all of a sudden things start to shift. And we're like, what is going on? Alan can't get on a radio station for anything. This man has some golden pipes and everybody wanted him. And then all of a sudden he can't get on any civilian radio station. And I said, honey, what is it that you want? He said, I want a radio station that aligns with me now. And the next morning, boom, TFR got a hold of us.
Yeah.
And we were on the air December that year. And by January, we went syndicated.
So
amazing.
Yeah. And that's
so beautiful.
Where it ended. Well, not
So,
ended.
not ended. I mean, come on. That's not what happened.
Sorry.
What happened? It's over now.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. So we're going to dig more deeply into each set of twins' personal stories, their personal journeys, just so you guys know. At the end of this, and if you're on my private list, you're going to be notified. I've got a interview date locked and loaded with each couple individually to get the juicy details that they had to leave out here in service of time. That you can find out more about exactly where they went in those 52 days. You can find out all of the things that Dov and Nicole had to leave out. But now we're going to talk to Lee and Sheri, because that's a whole other story.
Oh.
Yes. We want to know how you guys got together. And we want to know about the separations, and we want to know how you decided to stay together after so many separations. If
We
you could give
haven't
us the 10-minute synopsis,
We
the
haven't
10
made
minutes
that
cliff
decision
notes.
yet. Yeah, the universe is making that decision for us. Clearly, we haven't made that decision if we're hanging on or if we're just gonna let go. I'm joking. We're clearly hanging on. Our story started way before 3 decades ago. No, I'm joking. I have to give Sandra and Allen a hard time, but because we're not 3 decades old, but they are. But we did cross each other's paths. Gosh, quite a few times. Keeping it real brief here. When we were younger, in a store, and noticed each other across the room, and sort of followed each other, hid behind clothes, things like that. Again, when we were teenagers at a teen club, essentially, he was spinning on his head on a piece of cardboard. It was fine. People did that. And yeah, so those things, we didn't have any communication. The one time we did, we talked very, very briefly. And then again, here comes the internet. And in 2005, here we are on the internet at the same time, and we run into each other. Unknowing that our parents had known each other years and years and years before in a completely different state. Yeah.
So yeah, that was you know, you're in your head when you first see the person that you have this feeling about, which kind of is something new, you know. And when I remember seeing her picture and her winking and then me winking, and then kind of like, okay, what is this? Okay, I gotta meet her just to see what this is about. You know, she's probably easy to sleep with. That's kind of what was going through my head. Because, you know, we all have that thought, right? But, you know, the connection, as soon as I saw her, something on the inside of me felt like, okay, this is something completely different. And the more I looked at her, the more I listened to her, and the closer we got to one another, the more I started realizing I was not connected to myself at all. Which is usually what happens when the runner decides to run, which I did for 2 years. So even though we had this beautiful meet, and then had these beautiful moments where time literally was non-existent. We would come together, and it was like you couldn't tell us whether we spent 10 minutes together or 10 years together when we were together, because the energy was that powerful. But then when we go back to our regular lives, we'd be back in our head again. So it's like there was a longing for that feeling. But the feeling, I felt like I didn't deserve it. I didn't feel like I should have it. And besides that, I had way too many secrets. Secrets are a very unusual thing in this space, because once you hide something on the inside and then you come into this connection and you come out with it very freely, you feel like a straight idiot. And I did for quite a bit. As a matter of fact, she kept calling me slow learner because of this. But when I came back, I was coming back to say goodbye because of the cocaine and the alcohol and the need to want to get rid of myself. The thing about that is there's still a child in me that didn't want to go nowhere. And I believe that's what she was bringing out of me. And I didn't realize I needed some time with that child to even understand what this connection was here to give me. So when I started realizing how far disconnected I was, she started pulling away and decided to marry somebody and had a child with that person. And it was a beautiful thing because this child needed to be a part of our connection. I felt the conception, and I felt a little tiny heartbeat inside of her heartbeat inside of mine. When that light is on the inside of you, you actually experience it, you know that something has been calling to you your whole life and you finally should answer. So I thought, okay, I don't know what she knows about me, but she seems to keep asking me a lot of questions, so it's time to just kind of open up. And I opened up about a lot of different things, and she still accepted me in it. And I was like, okay, she's not running, which is a scary thing when the person you're connected to is not running from you. If they're not running, you find a way to run, right? You guys all know what I'm talking about. So it's almost like if they're not going to run for me, if they're running towards me, I'm going to back away. But there was something about her that made me feel like my feet were glued to the ground. And it was like she could reach inside of me and pull something out and ask what it is.
He asked me if I was a witch.
And I knew instantly she must know Sandra. She must know that. So you go through this whole experience of this mystical and this magical stuff with no concept of what the spiritual nature is trying to show you. Because you still have all of those unanswered emotions that are running through you when you come into this connection. And all those unanswered emotions you take out on the person you're connected to. Or so you think. They just kind of activate them and you just kind of have to tell yourself what it means. The more we went through that, the more destructive our human experience was, until we realized it just needed to be dissolved, which is the most beautiful gift the universe has ever given us.
Mm.
To bring us down to the point where we have to strip it down, literally, our emotions, the way we felt, this connection, we just had to pull ourselves and look at it and go, okay, this is not going anywhere. It's going to be here whether we're together or not.
It's very similar to what he was saying with the love and the hate.
Mm.
And it's genuine. It's, you know, hate's a very strong word. You hear that all the time, but it's the only thing that really describes how you feel. And it's not disgust, or it's just that I hate you. Okay, but I don't really.
Preach it.
You know what I mean?
Right?
But I don't really dislike you. You know, but it's you. It's not me. and then you realize that it's you. That's the problem.
Mhm.
And that's the issue. And then you got to fix it. And then they're still there while you're fixing it. You don't get it.
Yeah.
And then you keep trying to fix it and they're still there and you don't know why. And then you wonder why you're still there, because they're going through some shit. And it's back and forth in so many deep, dark separations. End of the world, end of life, heart ripped out of chest, soul crushed into a million pieces. I cannot breathe. The desperation, the obsession is so strong. You want to look at these things. You want to find validation outside of yourself. You want to continue to keep going and going in this obsession. And then the separations get worse in the obsession stage. And it just turns into a big shit show. And then you've got to realize that you have to fix it within you first before you can fix it with each other. And then you start to accept the fact that you feel this way about this person you love so much because you feel this way about yourself. That's the problem. And then finding that, I mean, I'm sitting right here, finding it. This is what we do with connection. We find this, and the universe continues to throw things at us. Always, you guys are going to quit your jobs, and this is what you're going to do, and this is what you're going to do, and you're not going to do this, and you're not going to do that. And just like this, and I'm a family-oriented person, and if the universe would have given me Sandra and Allen's mission, we wouldn't be here, because there's no way. And it was just a mess. And the last separation we had was the one that I had to let go of him in. I had to let go of him in, and that's what brought him back. And that's why we're here. And that's our journey in a nutshell. It gets
the most beautiful part of that union, when we finally came together in 2012, was we had to walk away from each other so we could love ourselves. We didn't realize that the other didn't have a path to walk down, because that's not what we were doing. We were making the other person responsible for our connection to ourselves. We thought they were the key. I thought she was literally waking up parts of me, not realizing that it was my permission granted all along. You miss that part. This is the hardest part of this connection, because you spent a majority of your life disconnected from yourself. for wounds you just refuse to go into and grab yourself and hold yourself and love yourself through. This connection is not kind if you keep doing that. It will make you suffer. But the prize on the inside of that suffering is the love that you're going to receive, because you're finally allowing yourself to receive true love. You will not do this without going through your wounds and without connecting to yourself. So that's what our union represents.
We probably went over. Kay's gonna kill.
We did.
No. You guys were perfect. Thank you. Yeah, actually, Sheri, whatever your internal timer is right on the money. Nothing probably ever burns on your oven or stove. But
You're right. I have an internal timer.
This is wrong. I'm on video. I can't hide.
It's all good, peeps. It's all good. No hiding necessary among this crowd. In fact, the less hiding, the best.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you. Those were amazing stories. And so, like I said, if you happen to join the personal or the private list, that is where you will find more of their amazing stories. You'll be the first to know, so you can mark your calendar when I do the interviews, one-on-one interviews, where we'll deep dive. So now we're going to switch gears here. Many of you took the time to already join the private list, and many of you sent me a lot of questions. I have something like upwards of like 180 questions that I had to go through and aggregate to really understand, like, okay, what are the core themes our community is facing at this time? Especially as, it feels like the whole world is turning on its head. We're in this moment where this deep connection, if you didn't land on the side of, being in some sort of union before, the government global government started mandating social isolation. Now you're left with a lot of questions about, can this happen? Will it happen? Is it supposed to happen? Am I crazy? Because now the separation isn't even us, it's the world. And so I've got some questions to go through, but before I dive into all of them, I just want to thank all of you for being here. And I want to go ahead and start with, what insight or advice would you like to give to people who are finding themselves no longer separated by their own issues per se, but now separated by what is happening in the world? What insight, what advice do you have about this being a part of the path toward union?
Is this just open for all of us?
Hit it.
I'll look
Hit
it
it, girl.
Okay.
Hit it.
Yeah, no, this is really on point, because today we were doing a healing and mentoring session in our membership community for twins. And, the channel that came through was much to this answer, which is, for me, and what I feel about this time is, although we're experiencing ourselves three-dimensionally as having this social isolation, we're coming into a much more unified energy. Right? All the work that all of you guys have been doing has been moving this planet and the consciousness into a more connected oneness. And you listen to every one of these unbelievable panelists talk about the fact that you got to go in here to you. And now you're in a place where you've got to go in here to you, and you can also still be connecting, and you can still be feeling them and understanding it in a deeper level. And as somebody asked me too, they said, well, what if that's not, even my twin now, or I'm separated and I don't know, and I've got all this confusion. I said, well, you're resonating with this template, this twin template within you. And there is a lot about this story, right? And Lee said it really beautifully. This story is about you and those pieces inside of yourself that need attention, care, and love and growth. And so I would just invite you to consider that we might be moving towards a more connected space than disconnected space, and that you have a lot of sovereign power within each and every one of you to create that within yourself. It's not just the external reality, which is only just catching up to all the work we've done, and then we'll change again, and it will change again. That's it for me.
Yeah, agreed. I feel like it hasn't changed our lives a whole lot because we're always home and we're always together anyway.
Yes.
But just hasn't changed much. We have sat and talked about different views, different opinions on what's going on. And I believe fully that it's a reset. We had to reset. We just needed to sit down and shut up for a minute and reset. And I've had it personally done to me a couple times. Just universe picked me up, set me down here. Now you can't get out, so you just think. And and I believe that this is almost a global. It's a reset, very much so. And now we have twins who are, or connected ones who are locked in together, or who are locked away from one another, right? And the challengers are becoming they're different challenges.
The intensity level is changing for each one.
Yes.
We're also seeing the end of static, which means that at some point you're going to get clarity of what the vibration and what the frequency actually is asking of you is, are you connected to yourself? So during this time, what you're finding is that we're starting to see the end of the love-hate relationship, and we're saying hello to connection. But it's only going to work, and it's only going to be there through this blessing of being pushed into a space where you're no longer taking outside information, you're starting to gather it from the inside. You will not accept connection without this. And I think, the way that this is coming out, it's beautiful for us because we literally eat, breathe, and be in the same space at the same time. But we found the freeness to say what needs to be said. And we're even really kind of testing the waters and saying things that we didn't think each other would say. But that's part of the beauty of connection. There's no need to run away from one another. There's no need to keep stuff down, because once you've actually put into a lot of the emotional stuff that you're going through in isolation, love yourself through it. Because that is the space that's going to create a stronger connection coming towards you. This social distancing is a blessing. We've been connecting so long and for so many years through mind versus mind that we forgot that we had a heart. So it's time. And the universe that sustains us and is fully connected to us is letting us know. Either stay disconnected and perish, or be connected and survive.
Yes.
There's a choice. The universe is not going to go, oh, let me take this virus away. I think they got it. It's not going to do that. There will not be a stand-up comedy routine by this virus about your connection to yourself. That will be you that creates that.
You're not grounded anymore until you unground yourself.
And then you'll be surprised that you can fly.
Right.
You're here to do. Go ahead.
This disconnect at this point is for everybody to be on an even, I really want to emphasize this, an even playing field.
Yeah.
So how many people get caught up in distraction of routine? And they're doing the same thing over and over and over. And it's really easy not to connect to self or your connection. And this is creating this stillness. This is our 0 point. We are in 0 point. We are creating where we have never created before. And it's the most amazing experience. But with 3D eyes, it might look like hell right now. But
you were the one in my dream, Sandra. That was you. I knew that was you. I'm hearing you now. She in my dream came out of my dream, and she came out this big, huge bubble and went, they're all disconnected and they're making decisions for you. And I went, what? And you were pointing at the planet. So we're having decisions made for us without them ever connecting to us. And we're finding just trying to do it with each other is a struggle. But then we found a really beautiful path in that struggle. You'd said that in the dream, and I went, oh, I guess the planet is disconnected, but I never really thought of it the way that you're saying it, because it makes sense with what you said.
it just is, it's the most beautiful time. But right now, the couples that are balanced, I got to give all of you kudos. And I'm looking at all of the panels that Kay has chosen, and they all have different paths. Okay. They're all doing different
It's
things.
great diversity.
This is the most amazing
Yeah.
oneness coming together right now, where individually you would hear from us, or you'd hear from Lee and Sheri, or Dov and Nicole, or others that are on the panel for the next time. Okay. Now we're all coming together and saying, if we can do it, so can you. We are the world's best cheerleaders. Come on, guys, you can do it.
You can do it.
Expand this and make this the most wonderful, amazing planet ever.
Well, we've been given a great choice here, haven't we? I mean, we really have. We've been talking about 2019, you know, being in the buildup, you know, against for the other. And then 2020 hits and this hits. And it's kind of like the universe going, hello, McFly, hello. One last time, are you going to do it? You know, and it may not be the last time, you know, but I'm just saying, it's such a clear wake up call to say, okay, you've got a choice here. And I know the way that we have chosen, and we're like you guys, Lee and Sheri, it hasn't really affected us that much at all.
No, it's
Not
like,
really.
oh, we're going to be cooped up together. Yay.
Regular day.
By day 5.
You know what was really interesting for me right before the virus kind of became like, you know, after actually, I think the first time I ever seen it was like 127 was when they were talking about the virus, maybe even before that. And I remember I always like to watch social media to see the collective, to see where everyone's at. Because I could tell when everyone's, you know, got their feathers ruffled, everyone's attacking each other, and you could see this disconnect and where the disconnect was. And all of a sudden, when it got real serious and lockdown started, that superficial focus just completely started to purge out of everyone.
Oh, man.
It was wild because and then everyone started attacking each other again. And then all of a sudden, right after that, everyone got like, we need to come together. And you saw like people coming together. And I was watching it and I was like, this is that moment of like bridging gaps between all the differences, because everyone's now, like you said, that is an equal playing field.
Mm-hmm.
And the interesting part is my whole life, I've been wanting to come home to Nicole, my creator, come home. And now we locked in home. And we gonna be with ourselves, you know, and be in this moment. And the fact that we have social media right now, we're able to connect with each other. So we're not really alone.
Right.
And to work through things with people, it's just been a blessing and amazing. And you know, seeing people's sight shift, the frequency shifting and the vision shifted into like this, you know, hawk eagle eye view, where people are asking questions and they're getting answers to questions that I've been asking my whole life, and watching people awaken. And I always say, you know, people are like, well, everyone needs to awaken. I said, we need some people to kind of stay asleep. We don't need a panic. We need a little vibration kind of balance. And for those that are awakened, is with much responsibility. And so to all of you on this panel right now, I honor you for, I know the weight of the responsibility. As much as it is a gift, it has been like, whoo, some days like, you know, and but we do it because we're calling ourselves. We're being called every day to, and this woman keeps me going, man. Whoo! She spanks me often. Well, I wasn't getting freaky, but like, you know, literally tells me how.
I understood what you meant.
I've been a bad boy.
I understood what you meant.
Okay. Thank you, time.
Amazing. We all know about
Love
that
it.
spanking time. We love it.
We
We
had
love
MySpace
it.
too, Nick. We had to get on MySpace too to reconnect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So bad.
I love
so
it.
bad.
Well, let's dive into some of the other questions. And so, because we're technically supposed to end technically 30 minutes from now, and I saved about 10 minutes. We only have like 20 minutes left for questions. But if you guys have a little room to go a little bit over, definitely let me know in the chat. I chatted each of you guys. Sandra and Allen, you gave me the thumbs up, but I'm going to go ahead and get into question 1. Yeah. This is the perfect segue. So many of the people who responded to the questions were in some varying state of separation. And now we've got this mandated separation. But the question that kept coming up was about faith. And how do you maintain faith And you can answer either question. I'm going to ask two, and then you can work with either one. How do you either maintain faith when you're in a state of separation? Or the other question is, there are many who are in separation who want to, while they're in separation, help the twin who is not necessarily, who's actually running or separating or disconnecting, the one who's not choosing to be in the connection. How do you help that twin once you're in the state of separation?
Just an open-ended question again.
Yeah, anybody can take that. And you know what, actually, Sheri, since you spoke first, I'd love for you to talk about what it meant to let go and how that shifted things. Because I remember you guys talking to me privately about the moment when things took a turn and what was going on energetically prior to that. And you had both shared with me, it was in that state we had actually both given up.
Mm-hmm.
And that was when truth started to come out.
It's kind of starting in. There comes a point in time where for one reason or another, you just have to come clean with everything with your person. And I hadn't quite done that yet. And I was still holding on to some fear and to some things and trying to keep that fear activated and under control, right? So it wouldn't explode and be exposed. All the while in my mind doing it for all the right reasons and so many different things. But when confronted with things and there's a separation and it was ugly, it wasn't pretty at all. Before we even knew about any infidelities, we were at a point where we couldn't even be in the same room at the same time. It was so tense. And when we separated, it was brutal, to say the least, brutal. There was so many hurtful things I can't even get into because it would take too long. But literally, in of course, in my mind, it was an hour, but it was probably a week-long period. But even a week, that Lee had went from our relationship and jumped into another one with a former lover. And that was hurtful. And then confronting me with the things that I had done was hurtful, because nobody wants to get in that position. You don't want to be busted. And when you are, it sucks. And but you're at a position where you've just lost it all. It's gone. You have nothing else. It's just, you're at rock bottom. You're over. And there's still that string we try to hang on to, especially when it comes to someone we're connected to. And I was still trying to hold on to that string. And there was something inside of me telling me to let it go. You've got to believe in me enough. And I was talking to me, you've got to believe in yourself enough to let it go, because this isn't healthy. And man, so of course that I went through that. I'm letting go. I'm over it. I'm over it. I don't even think about him anymore. Over it, right? Lee who, right? And then you go through that, driving down the street and you see the license plates and Lee's names every freaking where. I mean, it wasn't even Kentucky Fried Chicken. It was Lee's Fried Chicken at that point in time. Every freaking Lee's name was McLee's. There was no McDonald's. Every freaking thing was Lee. License plates, 11, 12, 13, who knows? Every freaking, his birthday everywhere. It was a nightmare. And how am I supposed to let this go? I'm so pissed, because everywhere I go, there he is. But I had to find it. And I laid one night and in me, and I just cried. And I just cried and cried and cried and cried and cried. And worst case scenario, I don't make it through it. worst case scenario, I won't feel it anyway, right? So I did that. I finally just let him go. Guys, it was so freeing. It was so freeing. It felt so good that I wasn't obsessed with him anymore. I didn't need him anymore. Whew. I'm not crying because you left. I'm crying because it felt so good. But,
How long did that last?
So,
but if you understand that, you get how it feels. It felt so free to let him go. And that's what opened up communication. For me to be able to be with someone else and actively have a relationship with someone else, and for Lee to be able to be free too for a period of time. And we ended up back together. Of course we did. Here we are.
but we needed to learn a very valuable lesson.
Yeah.
And the lesson was, can you love somebody while not being connected to yourself? No. And you know, when you start holding back or keeping back parts of you, or you create expectations on the other person in a way, you completely have disconnected from yourself without even seeing why. So we needed to go through that final moment of no more expectations on you, no more expectations on time to bring us together, no more expectations on we're trying to love each other through a lens we can't see through. And we finally took our glasses off and took everything off and allowed people to love us. And then we went, wait a minute, this isn't the love we want. We didn't strip down to the person we love the most. We didn't strip down to the person we're connected to. Meanwhile, they could see we weren't loving ourselves or connected to ourselves. At some point, you have to reach that point. Separation is happening to you already if you're not. It was happening to you when you were in the connection. How can you be connected to someone while being separated inside yourself? Because that's what you're doing when you try to discard your hurt, discard your past, discard the shit you've done. You're just proving the point of how can somebody love you if you're not? How can they connect to you if you're not? Truth is, if you're not taking that moment to step away and ask yourself what you're allowing them to see, if you don't hear the whole damn thing, stay away. You're just going to hurt them, and you're going to hurt you in the process, and you don't even see it. And it's not easy to do. And it's not easy to see. And we're not here trying to tell you this is probably the easiest thing you're going to do. But we are going to say this. The depth you will reach will create a love you've never experienced. And you'll allow somebody to share it with you.
I think I really want to jump in here and let's talk about faith. Let's do that. Okay. He and she.
My first answer is going to be to answer the question 30 plus years. That's how you get faith.
No, really.
But anyway.
It's a very simple way of looking at it. When you're looking at the he and the she of this, and you're in separatism, you're not in the we. Okay. So the only thing that you're separate from is the he or the she. Come into the we. There's no separatism. We have this preconceived notion that he is he and I am me and we are we. And when you get past this expectation that he must do something for me or me must do something for him, let's get into the we space and realize when you do something for, we're going to use this word anyway, he, you're doing it for yourself. There is no separatism, sweethearts. Bring it to the we and understand the only reason that you experience the separation is to learn you're not separate. Bring it back to the we. And you will have faith that can move anything. We've been asked to walk the path of faith for the past 5 years. And we've done things that most people look at us and go, what are you doing?
But boy, it did not start off that way.
No, it was, we had to have enough faith to listen to what Spirit was telling us and say, we can take you the shorter route. It may not be beautiful, but it's going to get you there quicker. Are you willing to do that? And we had to lay it down and say yes. And it was the hardest thing we ever had to do. It was the most, we look back on it now and we laugh, but I'm telling you, there were times when we didn't think we were going to make it.
Oh, it was scary as hell.
It was like,
it was.
Wow, we are exiting. I'm going to use this word because a lot of people understand it. We were exiting the matrix during this past 5 years. You don't become dependent on money. You don't become dependent on outside sources. You depend on your inner knowing and being connected to pure faith.
Because ultimately, who are you with? You're with you. You're with you. And if you, like what Lee was talking about and Sheri so beautifully, if you cannot be comfortable with you, nothing else is going to do it.
You can't fix anybody. All you can do is focus on you.
Don't fix twin.
No.
Fix you. You ever try to hold on to your favorite dog or cat? You love it. You just want to hold it, and you've got it in your arms. And after a while, your pet's just like, okay, and you're like, no. You're still right here. No, you got to. And next thing you know, that animal is going to get away from you. And it's going to tear something up trying to get away from you. Next time you go to try to do anything with it, it's just going to be like, no, you stay away from me. You about choked me to death. Look at it like that, maybe. I don't know. Just a little added visual aid, perhaps. But yeah, you have to have the faith to let go. You have to have it.
You know, it's been interesting because we're talking about the I, and then I'm thinking about faith in connection to our soul. Right? Because a lot of us don't think about the fact that we're not handing over a belief of understanding or faith or idea into nothingness. We're believing in our soul's intelligence and its connection to the infinite intelligence. And I agree with everything everyone said, and I've been there in all of those places of just, I don't know how to even exist pain. And also, when we ask about the question of faith, it's like allowing for even just a moment the idea that we don't have to sometimes do anything other than be in that understanding that, you know, I couldn't have missed Nicole in this world if I tried to. You're hearing these stories that were not mastered by the ego. They were not orchestrated by the ego. They were planned out by these souls and by their higher connection and their purposes and all of these things that, you know, so when people say like, well, how am I going to bring it into the world? And of course there's work for us to do, but also if we believed that, for me, faith clicked differently when I believed that my higher self, my soul self, and the connection that it's supported by the universe didn't have its own plan, but my highest desire, wish, dream plan, because that was my soul. And my expression in this body is only going to be so excited to experience that one. And so when we talk about faith and we ask that question, that's what I think about.
Oof, baby. When I was a little kid, I had so much faith. It was burned in my soul. And I remember I'd never had faith in myself ever. And I remember when I cheated on Dov, I had a pretty good run of sobriety, and I was looking at a relationship and I was like, this is toxic. And I didn't know anything about twin flames. And I was like, I need to leave and choose Nicole. And I did. I did it in a jacked way. I didn't do it correct. I didn't have the tools to just say it until she busted me. And then we sat down and we got so vulnerable. And it was like, something happened to me that day. And then I left. And it was that moment of me choosing myself and having faith in that choice. And during that time was when I felt the depth of my connection to myself, which then I felt the depth and saw the depth of the connection to her. And it just like happened in a moment where I was just like, whoa, like everything that, and I was, at the time, I was trying to fill every wound that I had with this girl, another girl, this, that, you know, even just my program, all these things. And then I realized that just never, it wouldn't last. And when I went back to my wife, we started together and on our own, I started to deal with those places and wounds and got closer to myself and got closer to her, got closer. And it was a ton of work. And I love what Lee and Sheri said, and I love what you guys just said. It's that vulnerability and honesty in this relationship, because you know each other, you know yourself, you know, there's no hiding. And if your partner is going to hide from you, there's going to be a ton of suffering, and you can't run for too long, and you have to make that decision. And so it's like, if your other partner isn't making that decision, you have to make a decision. And that may not look like what you want it to look like, but you need to always be that decision. You come first, that union within you comes first. And if it is meant to be, that polarity is going to pull them back in. Three decades. You guys coming back together, like we're seeing, like we don't even, listen, faith doesn't have to always be blind, right? We're showing each other some things where we get to look at the way nature is. When there's a death, there's a rebirth. Listen, it's not about blind faith. It's about actually holding on to these universal principles and watching it daily and learning from one another, that there's so much faith. And that I love what Dov said about our higher knowing knows our heart's desire, knows exactly what we wanted to create in this life. And it's going, if you choose to surrender to it, it's going to bring you there.
Thank you. I love that. You guys did such a beautiful job with that answer. And Nicole, where you left off is where I would love to go next, based on all of the questions that came in pre-submitted. There's, you know, my guides have really kind of walked me through, like, you know, in the community at large, there's a conversation about runner chaser, or divine masculine, divine feminine, or awakened twin, unawakened twin. And my guides have kind of shared with me, look, the way this kind of works, you know, for the way we want you to understand this, Kay, is that there's one who's the intuiting twin, who really kind of very quickly picks up on what's going on, understands it, and is like running with, okay, this is where we're headed, this is what we need to do. And then there's another twin who is, what they have shared with me is the transmuting twin. And because of the way some of the patterns on planet Earth in relationship have been so toxic and damaging around love and relationship for so many centuries, and we're now coming to rewrite it, the transmuting twin steps in. We all do, but the one who's taking on the burden of responsibility for transmutation steps into those patterns, becomes them, so that they can overcome them and rewrite them vibrationally for all of the others that they're connected to in their soul group. And so, you know, my question for those of you who might identify, and, you know, the set of 6 here, as one who's really taken on the burden of the transmutational process, becoming those darker patterns around relationship, just so that you can leave that vibrational breadcrumb trail of overcoming them. What is the process like for you? Do you feel the separation? Do you feel, are you privy to all of the pain that's caused on the other side? Do you feel the pull? And what goes on when you finally stop, turn, and face the twin who's doing all the other side of the work, which is equally important?
I know she's going to be the transformational one, but I just wanted to like reinforce, in case anybody listening needs to back up and listen to how well that was described, how little judgment was in that, how much understanding of the roles, and how we see with our eyes such a different idea of who's doing what work and what it looks like. And I really just needed to say how spot on that description of what your guides had given you is. And if people can sit, those that are watching this, sit with that and integrate that at a deeper understanding, there's tremendous layers of freedom and truth in that.
Yeah, I'm definitely the one that experiences transmutation of low low frequency where I can't see, breathe, hear, smell the light at times, because I'm diving so deep into hell, where, you know, through drug addiction, through, you know, 12, almost 13 overdoses, where my heart stopped, to almost being murdered on the street, attacked, all of those things, and then having to deal with myself through that and the choices that I made. And when I'm in it, when I was in it and I was going through this stuff, I wasn't fully aware of what she was experiencing. Because when you are going through that vibrational pull and the blinders, and all you can see is kind of your feet, you are in yourself, and it is really hard. Gratefully, I have this woman who understood what I was doing at times. I mean, it took a while for her to see what was actually happening. But when I would come up for air, because I would come up through these and finally see what was going on, I could sit and break bread with her and sit with her and cry, and understood how painful some of the choices or the things that she witnessed or had to go through with me running around, not coming home. You know, and I sat with that, and I had to amend that within myself, deep forgiveness, and amend that with her. And she just always held me at the end of each one. And wow, there's been some experiences. I can't wait for our one-on-one, because I was just thinking of some things I'm going to leave for later. But yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, it's good to know when you're the intuiting twin hanging out on YouTube channels and Facebook groups and, you know, trying to understand what the heck is going on their side. If this is everything I'm experienced, it's helpful to get a little peek behind the curtain of what could be going on the other side, if you're not currently in some sort of state where you can talk about these things with your twin. So thank you for that, Nicole. And thank you, Dov. I appreciate that affirmation of their messaging and phrasing. Lee and Sheri, Sandra and Allen, would either of you like to chime in on this?
Well, I would say that I'm the intuitive and
Yeah.
you're the transmuter, and
Absolutely.
it gets we understand completely. It gets very, very, very heavy, and there are times when the energy that is racing through this man is just. I can't even describe it. He knows his limitations. He's been doing it for a long time, and he just has to back away, and we give each other the space, and then we come back together and discuss it.
Well, and I think that's one of the big things that we found out is that we can't fix that.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, and we don't even try to fix it. You know, whenever we just notice something is off, and most of the time I'm going to say it's me, and it's happening less and less frequently. It used to happen consistently, but we got to the point to where, and we think it's very important that you get to the point to where you just allow the other to go through what they have to go through, hold the space, let them know you're there, and you know, you don't shy away from it, but you don't intrude on it either. I mean, for us, that's how it works. And I know I carried a lot of heavy stuff for many, many years. I mean, you know, I was so into the addiction. I was doing everything in the world I could to get rid of it, mask it, stamp it down, cover it up, blame it on somebody else. And it all came back to me. And then when it boomeranged, it was just like 10 times worse then, you know? So yeah, I mean, we've kind of figured out how to balance it within us, within our union.
We need that safety space.
Yeah.
That says you're safe to say, do, feel anything.
Whatever.
And I'm not going anywhere. I'm here. I'll be there when you get through this, and I will help you through it, and I will wrap my arms around you and show you that my heart is wide open, and really give each other that space. It's very important.
I think it's also important too for the transmuter not to think, and I think I started to go there in the beginning a little bit, you know, because I'm just like, well, she's so intuitive, you know, she gets all this stuff. I don't get it. Why am I feeling all of this? And she is, you know, living up in the clouds somewhere. Transmutation, I think, is a very important part of it, and it's hard, and it's easy for the transmuter to be very unforgiving of themselves, be judgmental of themselves, be hypercritical. And I know it's hard not to do, but it makes it much easier if if you can avoid those things. Just my opinion.
Yeah, and I just want to add one thing too, which is just you had said something in the question earlier about the masculine and the feminine and what it, maybe you didn't ask what role it plays, but the transmuter also for me presents as that masculine energy. But if you think about masculine and feminine energy in general, masculine energy is the movement, right? It's the push energy, and the feminine energy within all of us is the intuition. And so I will often notice that transmutation, that transmuter energy, or Nicole when she's going through something, feeling it first, feeling the global shifts first, checking things out first, gathering the information and the data, going in the trenches to get those keys to give back, and so I have such a respect for the two roles. And I think this is where sometimes our human brain can limit the process because we want to put it into a category of who looks like they're doing a better job with what, Alan, you'd said something about having to avoid that guilt, and because it's the brain that tells us like, well, that is a more, yucky or shameful or, not as respectable process or experience. But I have to say, from the intuitive and energetic work that we do, it's major work to go in the trenches as a light soul and say, hey, I'm going to go in there and try to break down those addiction grids and understand them. And I'm going to go into those pain points, and I'm going to unlock those things, because I can only unlock them for other people or for the world when I go into it and I fight that energy myself, which means because we're humans, we go in and we forgot we were undercover, and that's major. And I have a lot of respect for that. And I want to share that piece, because it doesn't bring any more peace to the intuitive partner, if that's what we want to call it, or to the divine feminine partner, to make them smaller or judge it or create. It doesn't give us any more peace, and it doesn't harmonize your energies together by having a judgment, a frustration, an anger, a feeling of being better than, because of the smallness of the perspective that we're being fed as humans, which is part of that twin flame journey, is like breaking down those paradigms and constantly seeing the picture being bigger and bigger than we could imagine it being. So I love this question. I love where it's going and the opportunity to share that piece.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that added insight. It's always helpful to hear what it's like on, the other side of the fence. Now, but Lee, before you jump in, because I know you have things to say, sir. My peeps did tell me, they were very clear. Look, both of you are intuiting and both of you are transmuting. Once you've really finally come to, yeah, see, Sheri, I see that face. I see that face. Both of you are always doing all the work all the time. There actually is no one person who's just the runner or one person who's just the chaser. There's always all things going on at all times. But the question is really about for the person who's not hanging out here in these YouTube chats, but is actually going about the business of like noticing the connection and trying to like, nope, not doing that. Checking out. I'm gone. What's going on the other side of the fence for them when they're having that experience, and what's happening at the moment when they decide to stop, turn, and face it?
We couldn't figure out who was the person transmuting. We couldn't figure out who the person was that was doing the other parts. We couldn't figure that out because we were both sitting in our pain. When you sit in your pain and then you get out of your head in your pain, you start to see the creative energy it creates. Then you see how people take a part of that pain and pull it off and call that hurt. And they tell themselves a story about it and they put it over their heart where they block it. This is something that we have to sit in because somebody needed to. Because connection came from pain. We're here at the doorway saying you can jump in there and have rebirth if you want to, because there's joy on the inside of your pain. You've just been running from it or taught to run from it or pull pieces off of it and call it hurt. Those hurt created wounds, which created a belief system. The belief system I got infected by was one that I wished I was never born. This gave me access to my pain. This allowed me to see the child within it who might have said that on accident and then lived that way. This is your choice. You can go back into the pain and see what you created from it, or don't. But what you're going to find is on the inside of the pain is there's this energy that comes and creates intuition, or the intuitive nature, but not without having an opposite effect. It'll make you think differently. And how do you fit into the collective when you think differently? Or you experience differently? Or you experience connection? It's interesting, we still hear, oh, I can't tell everybody I know about my twin flame. Oh, you don't want to tell people who are disconnected about connection. Makes no sense. Does it? Not one time did it? No, never. But you pretty much are the creator. And I pretty much sit in the pain, and because of her ability for truth, and I look for connection, we can usually find out where your belief systems lie, what's deep within them, and what they do to you.
I think as far as, you're probably more the transmuter, I would think.
I would say I like to
I
just
don't know.
observe.
We do a lot of flipping back and forth
I
anymore.
I noticed that in you
You
guys'
can-
We do
story.
a lot of flipping back and forth now. And what's interesting is with my gifts, he's birthing more gifts. And then my gifts that are similar to the ones he birthing seems to be dwindling a little bit. It's like we're passing gifts back and forth. You know, at least we don't have to buy anything for birthdays or Christmas, or I'll just give you a gift back. I'll re-gift the gift.
Hey, real quick.
I
I never asked for material.
but we mostly switch back and forth. Lee gets into this space of depth that I haven't been able to tap into yet. I don't think he knows how to tap into it, because sometimes his mouth just goes, and he's not thinking about what he's saying because he's speaking straight from his soul. And it's hard for me sometimes. I want to look at it and go, what the hell are you talking about? But then if I hear it all the way through, then sometimes I'll get it and I'll be able to dumb it down for me a little bit and figure it out. But I don't have that gift. But there are most oftentimes when he does that I can interpret that,
Translate.
very, very easily, right? He can say something in a completely different language, it sounds like, to somebody else, and I can interpret it. And it just is crazy. But I'm the one who does a lot of the, okay, is the collective going through this? What is going on in the collective? What is
Before you two came into union,
Yeah.
before you two came into
so I'll go to K Moon. Like, is there something going on with the planet? What's going on? I'll ask somebody, Sandra or somebody, what's going on with the planets? I don't know.
Before you two came into union, though, and there was greater polarity hanging out, as in, you know, before there was an us that you two are experiencing now, you know, when you two were working the transmutational stages, what was happening for you? What was the experience like when you were in more of a state of separation?
Meet me in my pain.
Yeah.
Meet me in my pain. If you show up, then I know that this is real. Because as a human being, you never get shown that. You can be in pain, and pretty much most of your life, everybody run from you, or you tell yourself they're going to run from you, or you go through that whole hiccup stage of where you come up with a whole bunch of nasty things to say to yourself inside, until you realize, wait a minute, is she seeing me say that, or is she seeing me treat myself that way? And that's when you start noticing the difference. I mean, obsession was probably the worst part, I think, for both of us, because once we finally understood what it was, is really, you keep telling yourself that this person, place, or thing coming to me is going to fix something in me. There's no truth to that. There never will be. But obsession doesn't need a pill, doesn't need somebody to talk to, it needs you to hear yourself. That's the cure for it, always has been. Because you're going to find out that something on the inside saying, can I give this to me? And you're trying to put somebody before that. Won't work.
Lee, Allen, and Nicole, did you guys go through obsession with your twin?
Oh yeah. Yeah, definitely went through obsession, and which turned into all kinds of different things of jealousy and grasping, and it was, yeah, there was an epic obsession.
I'm still obsessed with her kisses.
Yeah.
Oh.
Nicole and Allen.
Oh.
We really are kind of obsessed with them. We kind of know how to make it low key that they can't pick up on it, but they do.
You gotta try to look slick, but you're really not. We feel your obsession.
You've had those kisses. It's hard to not want more.
Oh.
Think about
No,
it.
I agree with that.
Well,
We
I
were
don't know.
way past obsession years ago.
Yeah.
I can't even let that.
Yeah, I know, right? It's like, what? Yeah. That's something I've just never even really considered. I mean, I really don't. I mean, right before we got back together here, not BC time, but this time period. Yeah. Once we reconnected, I kind of got obsessed again.
Yeah.
I really did.
It reared its ugly little head, but it was like that quick.
Yeah.
A reminder.
Yeah.
So.
Right on. Thank you. I appreciate you guys' honest answers to those. Let's see. So the next question that was kind of ongoing or popped up a lot when I asked people, what do you most want to ask these folks? There's a lot of people in circumstances, either one of them is married to someone else, there's a child or children involved, and there's that kind of physical world separation in terms of the logistics of the circumstance. And I'm just curious, what insight, what advice do you have for the twin who's currently made themselves available for the connection? How do they navigate that the other person is not presently available? How do you be with that? What do you do with that? Do you walk away? Do you continue to see them? In what capacity? Any insights?
I think at this point, it's really important for people to understand. Can you be grateful in that moment? Because I look at all of the previous relationships that I've had and the ones that Allen has had, and I look back on that and I'm very grateful for those soul partners that stepped up to the plate and went through a lot of this with us so that we could be sitting right here, right now. And of course, this is many, many years of going through a lot of things, but can we be grateful in the exact moment now that we are in, and know that it's in perfect divine timing? And when it's time, you can't stop it. You're not in control with this. You're in control with this. And understand it is all in divine timing. And you set this up along the way for it to unfold the way it has. Can you trust that you put it in place the correct way that it needed to be for your soul growth?
Yeah, I think that it's, we get this question a lot as well. And I think that it is such a complex thing and there's so much case by case aspect to it. But I agree with this idea that there's so much value, and also that all the parties involved as souls knew their involvement, like they wanted to be part of this. The children, the spouses, the other spouses, the partners, whatever it is. I mean, that was part of everybody's connected mission, and coming into a process where you're going to meet your twin and have other parties involved, they're also part of that mission for you and that process, and finding how you move forward with integrity for yourself as well, right? Holding true to what, and that might surprise you what that is, or it might not. And that's where it gets so complicated, is finding and understanding, this idea of maybe what my soul is asking me to do in this situation goes against the things that I might have thought or known or believed about would be the appropriate and right thing to do in this dynamic. And having to really start to tune in and listen to yourself, your soul, your voice, your inside space. You know, for me, one of the most important things about this journey is being able to hear my voice really, really loudly. There were times where the outside world all had a unified message that was opposite from my internal voice. And that's the moment that I was able to hear myself very clearly, because I could feel my whole body go into chaos as I tried to surrender to the outside voices, because they were actually misaligned with what was true for me and necessary for me and what my soul was asking me to do. And this is one of the types of cases that will really ask that of you, to be able to hear your internal voice. And that doesn't mean that it doesn't get messy and complicated. And that doesn't mean that if lying starts happening, or, you know, infidelity, or you start to build a relationship while the other ones are not dissolved, there isn't certain energetic repercussions or consequences for that for you. But it might also be so complicated that your soul's asking you to do things, or your being is asking you to do things. And then the complexity of that is differentiating between your wounds asking you to do things, your fear asking you to do things, and that intuition. But refining that piece being a huge part of what Nicole and I do with people, and what we've had to do with ourselves, is being able to hear that space. And now I've gotten very strong in that, to the point where it's okay if the outside world cannot validate that. And that's my recommendation for all twins and all beings, is to cultivate that voice inside of yourself so that you can connect with what's meant to be for you.
Mm.
And that's right on point.
This did happen to us, by the way.
This happened to us. And there was something quite unique about the way this happened to us. You know, when you're sitting in there not really loving yourself, you will be against who they're choosing and who they're with. Not because of them, but because of you. And when I started to realize that that wasn't doing anything to the connection, it was keeping it the same, which is what most people call stuck. And it wasn't because she was choosing somebody else and had a child with somebody else and was living a separate life. It was because I wasn't choosing me to be okay with being connected to her anyway, which closed my heart, which stopped anything from moving. If you want to, you know, the action that we were talking about earlier with faith, all the things that Sandra said, all the things Dov and Nicole said, is all about the actions that represent that faith. Is it possible to have faith with your heart closed? It's a dead end street. You'll pass that sign every time, and you're looking at your twin going, why do they keep passing me? Is your heart open? It's like, you know, you don't want to point to how simple it can be, but you can feel in your body when your heart's open and when it's closed. Regardless of their choices, they're not the one that can unlock that. Only you can. And more times than not, every single time you open that heart, guess who shows up? And then you find a reason to close it again, and they go away. You open it up, you close it, you open it up, you close it. And meanwhile, the mind, the one that's in control of all of it, is using you for the sole purpose to fit in with the collective of the disconnected. Maybe you'll change that.
Is it though? What do you feel? What did you feel? I mean, how did you feel, and how did you get through it when you found out that I was pregnant with somebody else's child? And we were connecting at that point. You and I we were in the process of reconnecting at the point where I decided to run off and get married and have a child with someone else. Yeah.
That
So
feeling, I remember feeling it, and I felt hurt. Then I felt anger. Then I felt, wait a minute. It's in motion. It's happening already. And I felt something on the inside of me ask me, is this what you saw happening if you didn't connect to yourself? And I said, yeah, I sure did. I knew I was going to lose her. I knew that she was going to go away. So we almost manifested. And when you manifest something with thought, with your heart closed, it's going to give you the worst kind of that, right? You can't even escape it. And you think it's them sending it back to you. You create your own karma. You are the Neo in the Matrix. You are the creator of all of it. And you just have to step outside of yourself and listen to your consciousness to point it out. That's when your heart opens back up. So if you really want something simple, just ask yourself, if you're in separation right now, ask yourself, is my heart open to connection, regardless of the circumstances? Because that's what created this planet. And that's what created connection.
Amen.
Got to get into alignment with that. And it's not easy. I'm not saying it's easy.
So many more things that I could ask you guys. We could be at this for like the next 45 minutes, but I know you guys all are busy. You have amazing things to do and amazing ways that you're supporting people. So we're going to stop here with the panel. Thank you so much for being here. If you guys want to take a deeper dive, for those of you listening, you may realize that I've not paid very much attention to the chat. I actually only paid attention to the questions that people pre-submitted. So if you'd like to get a pre-submission on questions for panel number 2, you can definitely do that by joining the private list. I'm going to just drop that link for you now, but I also want to invite you to more intimate, more detailed, deeper dive conversations with these twins. Instead of on a panel, we're going to take a deeper dive one-on-one with each set of twins. And that link that I just dropped, that's the private link. It's the private list link. Those conversations are going to take place on the following date. So I want you guys to mark your calendars. We're going to take a deep dive first with Lee and Sheri on April 1st at, let's see, 8 p.m. Eastern. Then we're going to take a deep dive, and that's a Wednesday evening for those of you, or Wednesday, I'm not sure where in the globe you are. Then we're going to take a deep dive with Sandra and Allen on April 15th at 8 p.m. Eastern. Last, we're going to take a deep dive with Dov and Nicole on April 22nd at 8 o'clock Eastern. And I just pasted those things in there for you, but if you know you'd like a reminder, you can definitely get on the private list. That will be the way that I'll send you A, reminders, and B, the opportunity, if they decide to share anything special with just the private list, I will make sure that that is available to you through there as well. But for the wider audience who's witnessing this in real time, but also watching the replay, each of these couples, when I asked them if they would please do this interview with me, I also said, I want you to bring something with you that is going to allow people to take the next step, that's going to support them in their journey wherever they're at now. I wanted them to gift you with something that was going to allow you to take that quantum leap forward, especially now that we're experiencing the social distancing. The core thread of everything said today had to do with more deeply connecting with yourself, so that connection within could bring about connection in the world, and in particular with your twin. So I'd love for you guys to share what you've brought for our listening audience today. You guys want to go first, Dov and Nicole?
Sure. Thank you again.
Yes, thank you so much to all of you.
Such a beautiful experience to be on today, and for everybody to be able to have these stories and these twins to connect with. It's really, really moving. For us, it had everything to do with the energetics of the connection before we even got into dealing with the three-dimensional stuff and talking about being in this time of separation, but being able to then have a deep connection with ourselves and with each other in energetics and fifth dimensional realities and all of that. And so we wanted to gift you guys our twin flame audio activation. And this is really about activating that blueprint within you and the connection and the twin flame connection within you, but also being able to clean up that space between the two of you guys on an energetic level. And so it's something you could do every single day. Bring yourself calm, bring yourself connection, move the energy. And I remember when I learned, when Nicole and I were separated, being able to just start doing some basic clearing and some activation, learning to communicate with her, not just from the telepathy that I didn't know what to do with when we first started, but intentionally communicating with her soul and feeling that filling up and that guidance and being really understanding the illusion of the separation was so powerful and soothing for me. So that's what we wanted to bring to you guys, and hopefully that will be something that's supportive and resonant for you as well.
Thank you, Dov.
Nicole's always going to keep you guys laughing. You'll find so much humor. Just find any one of our platforms.
Amazing. Deeply appreciate it. Thanks, guys. So for those of you listening, I have twice placed it in the chat, Dov and Nicole's audio activation. You can find the link there. And if you're on the private list, this will also be sent directly to your inbox. All right, Lee and Sheri, can you talk to us about the number one thing people can do to take their next step with you?
Certainly, you can, man.
Are we coming through good? Because I know it was
We're kind of choppy. All right. We have brought with us all kinds of cool stuff. Not only this, but and that is enough. But we'll definitely gift you a complimentary 30-minute session to talk about your twin flame issues, what's going on and with you. And
we're going to be doing something really fun next week. We're going to have a limited time for a week, a Twin Flame Bingo Facebook group, which you can all join and have some fun. Yes, we'll play bingo, and it'll be all surrounded around connection to yourself.
Yeah, so you'll be able to find the information on that. You can go to relationshipreinvented.com. We have a Facebook group, Relationship Reinvented Twin Flame Work Group. You can email us at info@relationshipreinvented.com. You know, I really want to thank K Moon for bringing us on, and everybody's on the panel being so vulnerable and open and loving and kind, and then there's Allen, and but the questions were intense. They really were, and they were. I love you, Allen, and your luxurious hair. But it was a pleasure, and it was an honor to be able to be here with you guys, and to answer these amazing questions. These questions were intense, and they were pretty cool. Yeah. So find us, and we always do K Moon specials.
Yeah.
We do them.
Yeah. So if you say K Moon, we'll offer you something really unique and special. You can also find us on YouTube under Lee and Sheri, Twin Flames Lee and Sheri. We're going to be continuing our journey during this, so you can actually hear some of the day-to-day things that we've been going through. So that will be continuing on. So you'll still find a lot of our content will be out there, but it really is about the connection to yourself. Focus there.
I wanted to leave you with that too. This twin flame union isn't about two people coming together. That's not what this is about. And it may look that way on the screen, but that's not what this is about at all. This is really about the connection you have to yourself, because you can't have this open, loving, vulnerable experience, complete openness, complete vulnerability, complete exposure, unless you're willing to have that within yourself. It's that important. It's that important.
Absolutely.
And our wonderful buddies down there.
It was absolutely wonderful being here with all of you. The energy that we feel now is it's amazing. We're both vibrating, and we really appreciate your connecting with us.
Right on. Thank you so much. I've pasted the links for those items in the chat for folks so they can find you. And again, if you are on the private list, I will definitely email you a link to all of these items so they'll be direct in your inbox for you. And then lastly, Sandra and Allen, if you would talk to us a little bit about what people can do to get more deeply connected to themselves with you, that would be fantastic.
Well, we have our show every Saturday Eastern time from 5 to 7 o'clock. And it's a 2-hour show. And we have hundreds of shows that we've had that are, we call them power couples as well as twin flames.
Just phenomenal guests.
Phenomenal guests.
Awesome.
And we invite people, if you have I'm going to call it a hella story, and you're a traveler like we are, anything like that, and you would like to get in touch with us, please do. If you'd like to meet us in person, I think that we could do a half an hour of meeting with you if you will send us an email to twinflamedivinefire@gmail.com, and get to know us. We are the old folks, you know. Yeah.
Don't remind me. Hey, don't remind me, please.
But there is so much to learn with all of these, and it's really funny because the radio station is TFR, stands for Truth Frequency Radio, but we joke and call it Twin Flame Radio all the time, because also the owners of that are a set of twin flames. So there are a lot of them that are together. They are power couples. They are assisting others to come on board and tell their story and what it is they're doing for the world. So we encourage you, please find us on TFR live.com. And if you want to be a subscriber, you can go all the way back to the very first show that we had.
And it's a lot of good programming in general.
Yeah, there's
really good shows, I should say.
Awesome people. And I really would like to get to know people and hear their stories and get them to know your quacky self. You know.
Yeah, do a half hour recap.
Yeah. We'll do a half an hour recap.
Half an hour recap.
So.
Oh, sorry.
I have
We were
to
judging his quackiness. That's all.
And
Amazing.
And I really want people to know Lee and Sheri performed our binding ceremony when we came together. Yeah. So they can tease us because they know
up now because we tied them.
It's hanging up behind us.
I love it.
It's been a joy and an honor. Thank you, Kay, for having us on. And it's been a joy sharing time with Lee and Sheri and yourself and Dov and Nicole. It's been a lot of fun. And thanks, everybody, for checking us out.
We need to do this again, Dov and Nicole.
Dov and Nicole.
We need to do this again.
It was awesome meeting you guys, man. It was great.
Dov and Nicole need to hold on.
Meet all of you.
What?
Dov and Nicole need to get a hold of us.
Yeah, I can't hold you. I'm emailing you right now behind my back. I got you right now, girl. We will definitely.
Get a hold of me, Nicole. I'll school you on some Allen teases.
Yes.
Awesome.
Cool. All right. I got you. Yeah.
So much camaraderie, so much love, so much friendship, so much connection here. Thank you, everyone who's been watching and listening live. Please feel free to take this content and share it on platforms that you're hosting for Twin Flames. Facebook, Instagram, link back to the channel is my only request of that. And definitely check out those links. I'll be linking them below the video if you happen to be watching the replay. All the things that were just shared will be linked below the video. And if you're on the private list, you'll be getting it directly to your inbox very soon. Thanks again, everyone, for being here. I deeply appreciate all of your time and thank you. The work you have done on behalf of us, the collective, is tremendous. Your service does not go unnoticed. And the footprints that you have left for us to follow are truly things that we treasure. Thank you for being where we can find you. Take great care, everyone. Bye for now.
This is-
Bye.